everyone, welcome to night school. Hope everyone's doing well and staying safe and inside. Tonight we'll be covering output options from Pyware. We'll go over different options for printing, um, being able to print your production information on your charts and how that is represented on both your charts and coordinates. And also, we'll delve a little bit into the different options that you have for apps. Um, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat and we'll be sure to get to them. Let's take a look here. Let's just dive right on in. So, by default, in all editions, you have access to print charts, which are going to be actual charts. You can print your charts from the page tabs you have listed here, your currently displayed count, and a thumbnail type. The standard chart looks like this. It's going to have your title listed at the top. You'll be able to put in information here for copyright and or a logo if you'd like. And it's going to have your license information here. You'll see at the bottom here that this is your director's viewpoint, or it's going to identify it as student viewpoint. So currently the home sideline is on the bottom of the page. Visitor is on the back. In the performer, it's going to be flipped. You have your set information. This is pulled from your page tab, as well as the production sheet. We'll touch on that a little bit further down the session. Also included in all editions would be print coordinates. Well, let me first put a couple of people on the field. I'll just jot a couple of people down. I'm going to label them so we can have more information. One to the end. And I'm just going to do some transitions real quick. Okay. Accept that. Okay. So now we're going to have different locations on our pages. I'm going to go to print coordinates. You can adjust the size of the page. I'm just going to do a print whole page just for a preview. So you have your coordinates option here. You're going to have your set information, your left and right, visitor home option. You're able to adjust the grid terminology here. I'll explain that momentarily as well. You have your print cast sheets. So you can print out the cast list information, any notes that you might have. If you needed to post that on your bulletin board. You also have the option to print a cover sheet if you wanted to. You're going to be able to print a cover sheet for your drill book. Okay. The other option that you'll have in all editions is going to be the print instructions. So basically what this is a sheet of instructions of what the performer is doing and what group they're in. The group identified is currently all X's because we have not labeled that group. Currently we are following a path for 32 counts for different transition because we created that over the 32 count transition. You can come in and adjust those notes in your command editor. So as you can see here, I can click on the, let me get out of this. I have a couple of people still hidden here. Show all. Let's get rid of those so we can have a clean slate. Okay, so in our command editor, we have the ability to click on our performers, and it's going to identify these performers here so you can give them a group name. So let's just call this wins. Okay. So it finds any other groups here, and it's going to identify those as wins, and you're going to have the transition description here. You can adjust this to be anything that you'd like. This is where you'll have information for if you're doing a traditional maneuver, you'll be able to adjust that to from the terminology you use to enter it to any specific transition name that you have. Okay, and then that is all going to be saved in your drill, and you can come back to print instructions. For performers, as you can see now, I am in a group name of wins, and it's going to have any information. It's also going to show any visual changes. So if you wanted to print this out so that you can see any visual changing, whether it be body movement or flag or uniform changes, you're going to be able to see those here. And that'll be printed out. Now, the other option we have for printing is going to be the personalized drill books. This is included in the professional or purchased separately if you have the basic or the interactive. Okay. Well, let's take a look here. Let's delve a little more in depth in each different option we have. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put in some information in our production sheet and show you how you can leverage that. I'm going to change my initial set number back to 1 here. You're going to relabel the sets by adjusting the initial set number. You can double click here and adjust that number. I had it set to 3 for an example, or if you're continuing this from another file, you can continue, let's say, set 25 if you ended on 25 before. But for this particular example, I'm going to leave it at 1. Okay, so we have any measure information. We're not going to have anything for set 1 at count 0. Let's see. We've got measures 1 through 8. Measures 9 through 16. Measures 17 through 24. Measures 25 through 38. Okay. So we have our measure information listed here. And then we have a place for title. We can put anything in this information. For the coordinate sheets, it will print 7 characters in there if you'd like to use that. I know some people use it for rehearsal markers, so we can put a rehearsal marker A. Okay, or some use it for information such as big hit, so they can see that in the production sheet as well as on the charts. This information can be utilized on the count track as well. By default, it shows the time of your audio sync, but you can also change that in, application options. Let's say I wanted to put show measures on the count track, or show title on the count track. Okay. So what we're going to have, I've got my rehearsal marker A listed, and I've got big hit listed here. Let's go ahead and enter a few notes here just for an example. Wins all float 32 counts. You can enter notes in all fields or put them all in one. I'm going to choose to have this be, let's have the first one be woodwinds. And the second one can be brass. And we can say percussion. Two. Vanguard. Float 16. Hold 16. Okay, so we have some information here. Let's go ahead and come back to our print charts option. Okay, so this window, we have all sorts of information here. The print selection is going to identify how we want it laid out. So if I only wanted to print one chart, I can come in here, select the currently displayed count, and it's going to print out the tab that we currently are looking at. We have our print from tabs. This gives us the ability to pick and choose which pages we want to print. And then we have print thumbnails. You can adjust that for a number per page. Let's say we wanted to do 4 in a landscape format. So you're going to see a printout such as this. And that's good if you wanted to hand out index size charts. Okay, so then we have our overlay set, which is going to be our secondary counts. Depending on which way you decide to teach or how you teach, you can have this show the previous set where it's coming from or where you're going to using the use next option. I do know that other people don't actually use these as well, so they choose not to do this by turning off the overlay set. This can be toggled off here per set or for all. These options down here will turn all or none. They're quick shortcuts for turning on these checkboxes in the columns. Okay, you have a paths option, which is going to show a dotted path for all performers on the page. You can choose to do all paths or midpoints. And then obviously you have a location to change your title on the fly here. All right. All of these options here are going to be for instructions. That's going to be all of the information coming from your production sheet. So you can change your title font to something. If we wanted to make our printout look a little more artistic, let's just do let's just find something. Let's do a fancy script. I'm going to do our title, let's say in a 30-point font. Okay. You have all of the set information. We can come down. Let's say I wanted to do Arial black. So Arial narrow. 18 sounds pretty good. Okay, so this is going to be information that's going to print out in the bottom area, the single row. It's going to allow you to have a date and time. You're going to be able to choose to merge. If you have subsets and you choose not to print the subsets, it's going to merge the count information. You can also print your audio sync time for this particular set, tempo if you have it set, and the date and time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to also include my production sheet notes. So I'm going to choose to have all 5 of them because at one point in time, let's say I have all 5 of them filled out. All right, let's take a look at what that looks like. So I'm going to do my print preview. Okay, so now I have my title in my script font. I have my time that this was printed. If you find yourself printing charts quite often, this is very important so you can see when these were printed in case you need a specific change on a specific day. As you can see here, I've got my set information with my counts and my measure information, which I don't have anything for set 1. Set 2 is where I added all of my information in my production sheet. So as you can see, I have my set number, the transitional counts, the measure information, and then the notes from my production sheet. As you can see here, I added a title here, so it's going to print the title there at the bottom as well. Okay, let's go back in and add a few more notes so you can see how it works if you're not using all the notes. Let's say notes columns. Let's say hold feature. We only have 2 things here. Okay. And, all right. So we have a few more things in here. Let's go back to our print charts. I'm going to go ahead and select all the options here. I did not save this as default, so let's actually change it to a different font because that was not very legible. Okay. Say I like all of this, so I'm going to go ahead and choose Save as Default. And what this will do is it saves all information in the top here as default, so I don't have to set it any other times. It just reloads that each time I come to print preview or print charts. So back to my print preview. There you go. My title is much more legible. Let's run through. So I'm using 4 of the 5 here. As you can see here, it's going to evenly spread the text areas at the bottom based on the number of text areas that you're using. So this gives you quite some area down here to work with. You do have 9 vertical lines of text that you can put here. I would recommend plotting that out in the production sheet if you're going to do that, because otherwise it does truncate that. So, okay. As you can see here, we have that. All right, let's go look at some of the chart functions, the chart options over here. So you can toggle on and off the colors. You can print all performers black. If you wanted to print performers as dots, instead of using the lowercase s symbol, you can actually, for everybody, you can actually denote everybody as a different instrumentation label. And then when printing, you can toggle this to dots and adjust the size, and you'll have a nice fine-tuned dot where they're standing. If you are going to be using letters, you do have the option to mark the center of the performer. Let me get a couple of people here that are different characters. Okay. Okay, I'm going to repeat those symbols. Accept that. Go back to my print charts, which does have my saved changes here. Say I wanted to mark center of performer's location. And now when you zoom in here, as you can see, I've got a nice solid dot in the center of that where the performer is standing on this, if you're going to be using alphanumeric characters. Jump over here and see if we have any questions. Let's see here. Let's see here. Okay. If you're experiencing streaming issues, I would recommend using Chrome, and that seems to work the best. Okay, let's jump back over. Looks like we don't have any specific questions currently. All right, so that would be the mark center of location option. We have the facing option. It's going to be showing the facing that they're, the direction that they're facing. This has been in for several versions. The facing is a line pointing from the performer down and has an X on the end of it, or a dot on the end of it. So you see this line here. Our labels are going the same way, so it's a little more difficult to see. Let's actually adjust our labels slightly. Okay. So I've got my labels turned off. Let's show facings. And now you can see that I have my facings forward and then my labels to the side. Okay, then we have the grouping option. Let's put one more group out here so we can identify that. Okay. Print charts. Select our grouping. Let's change our grouping. Let's say I wanted to print that in red, something like that. So now you're going to be able to see the way the performers are grouped, and with a red line that will help identify different groups if you're needing that. We have the zoom chart for largest printout. So basically you have two options in this. You have a static zoom, which allows you to enter a zoom percentage. It's going to zoom each chart to that. And this option, zoom a printout that includes these options. This is a dynamic zoom for each page. So if I select this option, each page is going to be zoomed to include the options that we have selected. So if I have on my home or my opening set, I've got a nice tight cropped zoom here from 35 to 35. As you can see, I have the performer spreading out some more, so it's going to zoom the grid out and shift it as my performers move around. This is very, very beneficial if you're wanting, if you have a smaller band, it gives you the ability to get a nice tight cropped printout so you're not printing any field that you're not using. And one way of using this, if you want to only print between certain, let's say, yard lines, is you can actually put a few prop performers or just a few performers around the field. So let's say I want to print to the back 20 or 25 back hash, 25 back hash. We can put those performers here. So it's going to automatically zoom to these performers for each set. So in this particular example that we have, we are going to have it zoomed to that location, except for the set that we are outside of that area. So let's print preview. As you can see here, it's going to be using those performers as my anchor points for zooming. So the only time that that adjusts is if we are outside of that, which this particular set we were. So that's another way of giving you a nice tight zoom if you wanted a, let's say, print 25 to 25 to back hash for smaller bands. We have options to toggle images for props and floor covers if you're using the standard props. If you're doing a save as PDF, the prop images do make the PDF much, much larger. So if they are not needed, you can toggle those off very easily. We have an option for increasing the thickness of yard lines and grid lines. If you wanted to toggle that on, it will thicken those up for you. Here is the performer viewpoint option. You can see it's going to be performer viewpoint. So now our home side line is up here. So you have the charts in the performer perspective. The last option we have, or last two options, include information about text boxes. If we were using text boxes on the field, we can toggle them on and off here. And you can also force a font size in the text boxes if you are experiencing issues with the font size being too small or too large. This option here is if you wanted to change the grid to, let's say, a grayscale grid or a different grid that you are not using visual or in the design view. I do know that several designers are using different colored grids to make it easier on eyes and eye strain. So if you have like a yellow background grid or anything like that, you can actually use that for designing and then come in and select a different grid to print on. And that just loads it dynamically in the print charts dialog. So once it's done, it goes back to your standard design view grid. Are there any questions on what you can do inside of the print charts option? Let's take a look here if we have any additional questions here. Nothing currently, so let's move on to the next option, your print chart or print coordinates. So we have our print coordinates option. If I can click on print coordinates. Okay, so we have several different sections here. The top left is going to give you the option to print either director's coordinates or performer's coordinates. The director coordinate is going to list all coordinates for each set on one page. So all performers for one page, and then the second page continued on for your sets. If you wanted to use those, this is where you would get that information from. Okay. It does have the same option to choose to print half whole, quarter page, or 6 page. You have your print performer coordinate option. And we have a way of, if we had this in a production, let's say we had 3 files in the production, we can actually combine all of those coordinates into one sheet. So basically, it's going to allow us to print all 3 drills coordinates in one swoop for everybody. And we have the ability to add a page break if you wanted to include that. So let's say the 3 drills spread onto 3 pages each. So we wanted to have one page per performer, one printed page performer. That will add additional page breaks. So you only have one printout per performer at a quarter size. So you can hand those out easily without having to do a lot of cutting and pasting. Let's take a look here. And this option is going to sort the performers, how it is sorting it when it prints out. So if you want them all printed by symbols, then labels, you have that here. If you want it sorted by name, let's say if you entered the instrument name in the name column, you're able to do that. Or if you've actually entered all of your performer names in the cast list, you can sort it here to have it in alphabetical order. This option is going to be all of your preferences for how it reads. You can refine the coordinate resolution, whether it be a whole step, half step, 8 steps, quarter step, 10th step. If you're using the 6-foot grid that Tim Fairbanks went in on one of our master classes, this was added specifically for that one. So you can actually get the step sizes needed. You do have the ability to change your starting set number. This is the same as editing the set number in your production sheet. So if we wanted the set to start on 25, that will actually renumber your production sheet to start at 25 instead of 1. If you wanted to print only a set of coordinates, let's say you have done the first 10 sets and you've printed those coordinates out, and you've come back and done the next 10 sets, and you only wanted to print out sets 10 through 20, you can adjust, you can select the sets 10 through 20 in your print charts window, select this option, and it will only print sets 10 through 20. That way you don't have a full coordinate card if you did not want it. You do have the option to merge your subset counts here, just as we did in print charts. This is going to merge, let's say we had 3 8-count subsets. If you're not going to be printing your subset pages in your coordinates or your charts, you can check this option, and it's going to change that 3 8-count transition to a option showing 24 counts. You have the date and time on the printout. You have a way of turning off all subsets without having to make any changes in your print charts dialog. You can turn off the performer ID that is printed. The performer ID is a unique number that the program gives each person when you put it in. It's how we identify it inside of the software. You also have the ability to print your set numbers, your set title, your transitional counts, and then the hash identifier. Let's go ahead and do a print preview so we can walk through that. Okay, as you can see here, I only have 1 page for this performer. So when I choose a page break, it's going to add 3 blank pages for this one. So let me go to whole page, turn off my page break, just for an example. Okay, so as you can see here, I'm jumping around the screen here. We have our performer name. If we were named, it's going to show our name here, our symbol and our label, and this title of our show. you're going to have our set number listed here, our title. It's going to allow you to print up to 9 characters here. Um, in your measure column, you will have the ability to print up to seven characters, I believe, or it allows you to do in the hundreds for measure count. Your count structure is going to be 32 count transitions, is what we have here, and then we have our coordinate information. Let's take a look here. Just toggle through, you're able to see all of your students' coordinates before printing it out. Okay, and we do have the same option for selecting a grid. In this window, it looks like we have a couple of questions. Okay. Bob has a question about possibilities of changing the graphics in the middle of the field in the end zone. So you're only wanting to do that in the real view. I'll touch base on that towards the end of the session, since that's not in the printed area. And Richard has a question about the production sheet. If I use the production sheet to put drill instructions in for performers, will I need to toggle back and forth to see the movement in the drill? I currently use text boxes. So, Richard, my question to you is, do you run with multiple monitors? If you do not, I would suggest having multiple monitors, because you do have the ability to have this popped out and used. If I can get my mouse over here in time. There we go. So I've got this now popped out, so I can actually keep this up at all times. And when I click on a particular column here, or a row here, it's going to edit that set. So I can actually keep this up at all times on a separate monitor, or if I wanted to resize this, I can resize it and have it to the side. So if you have a single monitor, you can either pop it up with the hover option, which is what I had on here, or you would have the option of keeping it popped out. Let's say I wanted to adjust my window here. So now I have my drill window adjusted if I'm on my single monitor, and I have access to all of my notes here still. Let's adjust this a little bit to get, there we go. Now let me adjust my toolbar. I'm going to be horizontal, go back to my 2, and have my toolbar here. So then I have access to all of my note information here at all times. If you do have access to either an iPad or a TV or a secondary monitor, I would recommend that, because it will exponentially increase your output, because you're able to keep your real view and your production sheet. And if you're running digital copies of your score, you can keep that on your secondary monitor, so you have that to your access at all times as well. Okay, let's jump back into our coordinates. Okay, so the last section we have here is our grid terminology. This is the way it prints out your coordinates. So let's say we don't like the left and right because it's ambiguous, because it requires you to know which side or which way you're looking at the field. So let's say do a side 1 for the left and side 2 for the right. So we can always know which side we're working on. And then let's say we had a couple of different options here, depending on what your practice area is. I know there was a band that we were working with that had a forest on the home sideline. I'm sorry, on the visitor sideline, there was a forest. And then there was a lake at the bottom. Okay, so home sideline was lake, back sideline was forest, so they use that as reference points. And then you have inside, outside, in front of, behind for referencing where it is in conjunction with the actual um, yard line itself. You can shorten these if you wanted to be more truncated. You also have the ability to rename your yard lines and your sidelines. These are very beneficial if you're doing indoor, so you can rename it from yard line to marker and sideline to marker. And then you have your hash. If you're using multiple hashes, you can change that terminology as well. So as you can see now, if I come back in and do a print preview, I'll have my terminology listed as side 1. I'm at side 1 on the 35-yard line on the lakeside hash. So it'd be the front sideline hash, and then all that terminology is listed here. If you are using the Udemy app, all of this information is transferred over there as well. Okay. Let us, or do we have any questions on the coordinates? Okay, we have a follow-up question from Richard about using an iPad as a monitor. If you're on Macintosh and running Catalina, you can use Sidecar, and that will allow you to attach your iPad as a secondary monitor. If you're running Windows or you are not running on Catalina, you're able to use Duet, and that will allow you to use your iPad as a secondary monitor. If you are on Macintosh, you do need to change the setting in Mission Control to allow you to move Windows to the secondary screen without having it in the same display window or display pane, as it were, or spaces, I believe is references. So if you go to your system preferences, go under Mission Control, and there is a checkbox there that says display have separate spaces. You want to disable that. That way, the program will be able to use both monitors as one space. And that would allow you to move it over to the secondary screen and see that at the same time. Okay, any other questions about the coordinate sheets before we move on here? Okay. Let's take a look at our next thing. Our cache sheet is fairly simple. It gives you all of the information here. You can choose to show your heights column. If you do not use that, you can adjust the size. It's going to show you the symbols that they are using, and it's also going to have a crosshair where the performer is standing at. So it gives you the exact center location of the symbol you are using. You're able to change all that information in your labeling tool as well. Let's see here. The next option is cover sheet. Very simplistic here. You're able to change your title in your document options. You can add your author information or your copyright information here. And then you can import text files of notes if you wanted to as well, and that will be imported and compiled together. Okay. Our print instructions, as we were discussing before, it gives us the ability to print out the instructions per the performer. So they'll have a printout like this. This would be good to have if you wanted to add, if you had specific visual information that you wanted to show to the performers. This in conjunction with your coordinate sheet would be very beneficial for them for that. Or if you're designing for a military or traditional show band, this is going to be effectively their coordinate sheet. It's going to give them the information if they're doing a step 2 or counter march or any of that information. It'll show that here and what counts and sets that they're going to be working with. Okay, and now let's go over the personal drill book plugin. Okay, so this option has much of the same options for it has many of the similar options that the print charts have. You're able to print your prop images. You're able to print only selected positions. Um, let's just take a look at it to begin with. Okay, so this is what we have. This sheet of paper is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. It's made so that you can fold it in the center, and you're going to have a front and back that you bind together on the edges that come together. So I'm going to have my title with my performer's name and the symbol they're working with. I'm going to have the performer name, title of the drill, set number, and the count that it's working with. I'm going to then see a overall view of the chart with this performer circled. I'm going to, in the second section, I'm going to see a zoomed in section with this performer circled. It's also going to show me pathways. Let me select a different person to work with for our example. Let's grab just A. Okay. So in our print preview here. Okay, so I've got my zoomed in, or my overall view circled. I've got my zoomed in view circled. The open circle is going to be where they're currently at. The closed dot is where they're going to be going. We also have a open square, so let's move to the next set. I have my open circle, my open square, and then my solid dot. And the coordinates that are going to be listed here are going to be for those three locations. And you're going to be able to get 2 sets per page to print out. Okay, and they're going to have the corresponding coordinates for each of those sets with your pathways printed here. Now, we do have options of adjusting that. Let's say I have a small band and I want to zoom in the top. So what that's going to do is it's going to zoom in the top view a little bit more so you have a tighter window. It's going to allow you to see less of the field, more of your performers. Okay, these options for printing drill book covers and including the all drills in the production. So if you had a production file, as we were discussing with our coordinates, with three drill files, you're able to print all of those at the same time merged. You also have the options of printing black performers, all performers as dots. These are all similar to, as I said, to the print charts option. Overlay set. Okay. And then this is where we change a little bit. We have the option to print notes. So if you choose to print notes, it's going to remove the top printout. Okay, let's say I want to do blank notes here. It's going to remove the overall grid printout, and it's going to add in a notes section down here. You can do blank notes, as I selected here, and that's going to allow the students to write in notes for themselves. And then you also have the option to pull in the production sheet notes. And what that's going to do is it's going to append the production sheet notes at the bottom. Okay. Depending on what information you wanted to provide to the students, you're able to change that on the fly. Okay. Any questions about the personal drill book printer? It is included in the professional, and it is an additional purchase for $199 for the basic, or if you have the interactive, it is additional purchase for that as well. Okay. Any other questions about the printing output that we have from 3D? We're going to move on to the options we have for our apps next. So we have 2 export options from the software. We have the ability to export to our Pyware app, and we have the ability to export to Udemy App. Our Pyware app is available through the App Store, the Google Play Store, or the iOS Store. Let's take a look here. Okay. You can find that information available on our website. The Our app gives you the ability to see all the animation. It will allow you to zoom around the grid. It's going to be very similar to the real view in that aspect, whereas you can change the angle at which you're looking at it. You're going to be able to peruse the notes in the production sheet or in the text box. It's going to have that converted. Um, and then you're able to see all animation and spotlight any performer at any time. You're going to also be able to see step-by-step coordinates in the top title bar when you are animating and have selected a performer. If you have any questions on that, I'm happy to answer it. The app is available for $2.99 in the App Store. Okay. The other option we have would be Udemy App. Let's swap that over here. And we did have a night school session on the Udemy app, and we can get a link for that as well. The Udemy app can be purchased through their website. That is a annual subscription. It is $10 per student. And it will take, you can upload your files directly to the Udemy app servers, and you are able to view the animation. They also now have the ability to import your own score. You can make notes. You also have the ability to hear the audio file. I know they're releasing a new Pro Edition, which is going to include geofencing attendance as well as calendar integration. If you do have any questions about that, we can answer some of those questions. I would also recommend you reaching out to Udemy directly on their website. They do have integrated chat just like we do as well. Are there any questions that I can answer about the apps specifically? Okay, we have question about issue with scanning the QR code. That is corrected. If you have not updated it recently, that was updated, I believe, during last marching season. I can't remember the exact time, but that is all resolved. There should be no issues that I am aware of with the mobile app, the Power 3D mobile app. The Pyware app is a one-time purchase, and that is available through the App Store that the phone is bound to, so the Google Play Store or the iOS Store. We don't have the ability to do bulk purchases on that. If the students are bringing their own device, if the school is a one-to-one, let's say if they have iPads, and check those out, bulk purchases are available through the Google Education Marketplace and the Apple Education Marketplace if you're doing a one-to-one. Have you changed the 2-camera requirement within your app? I'm not sure if I understand the question, Craig. The Pyware app does require a front-facing camera in order to scan the QR code. I'm not sure that that I was aware that it required 2 cameras. I do know that it does require a front-facing one. We do have a way, a tutorial for uploading a drill file. We can get a link for that as well. That is available in our manual. We do have a step-by-step video as well. We'll get that link posted for you. Let's pull that up. Pyware.com guide. Okay. We do have that here. Okay, so here's the step-by-step guide on how to get a drill file to our mobile app. And we can get a link for you here. Craig, if you could contact us after the session, I'd like to discuss that with you a little bit further. Okay. And do we have any other questions about the mobile apps, either mobile app? Any other questions about printing? If not, I'm going to move on to our question from earlier about how to get a logo on our field in the real view. So the logo in the real view is all determined by the surface. So we've provided a template that can be opened in Photoshop or GIMP, and you can set that, you can add your own logos to that. So let's go to our surface folder. I'm going to load our pre-done high school surface. Okay. So here's our pre-done high school surface that we have. It has the Pyware logos on it. We've provided you a template so you can actually edit this and enter your own logos here and in the end zone. So what you would do is once you've got that piece of artwork created, you go to your document options to the real view and choose your surface. Let's see if I have any other, I think we have a couple of surfaces that have been created. If you are not comfortable with creating your own surface, we do offer that. Oh, looks like let me move over so you can actually see this. Okay, so is everybody seeing the screen properly now? Perfect. Let me start over. So go to your document options, go to the real view perspective window, or tab on the window, and you have an option for surface. You're able to choose surfaces. We do have a surface created already, the Pyware logo surface. Okay. And as you can see, we have our Pyware logos in the end zones as well as the center of the field. The template we provide is available in your documents folder already. So let me just jump back over here and turn on. Let's go to Arizona State that we've done as well. So as you can see, you can add all the logos in. If you are not comfortable doing that, you can request a quote for having that created for you, and our art department would be able to create that for you so you can import it into your software. Let's pull up Photoshop real quick so y'all can take a look at the template that we have here. We created the template so it has multiple different layers so you can easily jump into that layer and add your own graphics. Any questions about applying the surface once it's created while I'm waiting on Photoshop to load here? I pull up my Photoshop file. It's in your documents, Pyware 3D, and there's a surfaces folder. Inside of there is templates. Swap over so you can see Photoshop. Eric asks, do people apply the surface markers to their grid? Are you talking about the yard line ticks, Eric? I don't know if they I do not know if they apply those to the actual written grid. You can add those as static props if you wanted to in those specific locations, or you can design to them in the real view. So if you, while you're designing, you have your real view up, and you can see where they stand while you animate. So they would be dressing that in the real view instead of on the design grid. The surface can be input uh, in both the UDB app as well as the Pyware app. You can import that surface as well. I am opening the template inside of Photoshop. By default, it is saved in your document option. I'm sorry, in your documents folder in Pyware 3D. Let me pull back my open dialog. Open dialog. So I am inside my documents folder. Inside of Pyware 3D, I go to my surfaces folder. I have templates, and then I would then open up my football field surface. I'll open up here. So here's an example of one that was created for Norfolk State. You have your different layers here. I'm going to compress these a little bit so it can be seen a little bit easier. Okay, so we have options for shadows. If you wanted to see shadows across the field, you can do that. You have your logos level, which by default we have our Pyware logo here. As you can see, I can toggle that off and then drop any logos into the field that we wanted to do. And then position and scale them accordingly. I have Sparky here. Let's toggle off some of these other logos. Okay, and I've got my Sparkies here on the left and the right side of the field. And then I also have my Pac-12 options listed here. And I can toggle those on and off. Okay. Were there any questions on how to access that grid or how to access that surface? Okay. If there are no other questions, I think we'll go ahead and end our session for tonight. If you do have any questions that you think of after the fact, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We will be back with a masterclass on Friday. We will have our art director, Jesse Mercer, with us, and we're going to go in depth on how to create uniforms and uniform images as well as prop images. We'll be rolling out a new template that's going to have many more different pathways that's going to make it easier for you to change your uniforms through Photoshop and GIMP. We'll be showing examples in Photoshop and GIMP depending on what options or what software you use. So I hope everyone has a wonderful evening, and if you have any questions, just please reach out. The question about yes, if you have signed up for the entire session series, you'll be receiving an email link for Friday. Those sessions were added yesterday, so you should be seeing that coming up through your email. So if you've signed up for the series, any sessions that we add after the fact will be automatically sent to you. Any other questions? Well, thank you all so much for stopping in tonight. Y'all have a wonderful evening, and y'all stay safe. Stay at home. Have a great evening.